Hello everyone. In this video I'm going to be showing you the different areas of the Inkscape interface just to kind of help you get a little bit of understanding of how the program is structured and how it's laid out. You'll see here that I have a version of Inkscape open, and right off the bat, one thing that I do want to share with you is that you can have multiple copies of Inkscape open at the same time. For example, if I have this document open right now and I click File, New, it opens another window that has its own set of controls, and this is a totally different instance of Inkscape. It's not another window in the same instance, and I'll just demonstrate that for you here. Let me see. When I change this window, this one stays the same as it was before, and if I go to a different tool over here, see how the toolbar up here changed, but this one didn't? So there's two independent copies of Inkscape open at the same time there, and that's not necessarily something you'll use a whole lot, but it's good to know that if you create a new document with Inkscape open, it's going to create another instance. But what that does allow is, if as you build up a library of art that you create, like let's say you create a bunch of icons and you save those in Inkscape files, in SVG files. If you want to use, like say I had a vector of a star and I wanted to use that in another project, I can just import the SVG, or I can open it up and then copy it out of the other file and paste it into the one that I'm using right now. So it's good to know that the interface, each instance of Inkscape that's open has its own interface that operates independently from the others. Now, at the top here, you have the application menu bar, this menu bar up here, and it's got, it's your standard menu bar for Windows machines. And I'm on a Windows machine. Something similar will be there on a Mac, but this video and the subsequent videos are primarily going to talk about Windows because that's what I'm using. Maybe in the future I'll do some videos on with a Mac, but right now I'm just going to stick with Windows, and I might throw in some Linux ones here and there, but because I really don't have unlimited funds, I can't afford to buy a Mac just to do videos on, so it's Windows and Linux for now. So but you'll see here that you have all these different menu items, and if you click one, you get a lot of things that we'll cover in other videos, but just know that this is called the menu bar up here at the top. And then just under that, you have another bar of icons that goes all the way across here, and that's called the tool controls bar. So you'll hear it called a toolbar or a control bar, but the official name is a tool controls bar, and it adjusts. This will change based on what tool you have loaded. So if I have the selection tool, which is or selector tool, which is what this is called, if I have that selected, you'll see this set of controls or this set of tools. But watch what happens when I change to this node tool. Watch this bar up here when I change it. Now it changes. It's context based, meaning whatever context you're in, this toolbar gives you options. This is a way that allows you to have a bunch of different options without having all of them on the screen at the same time, and you having to sift through them to find the one you want at any given time. So this control bar, it's going to change depending on the tool that you use. So here you have a shape builder tool, right? And it changes. Here you have a rectangle tool, and it changes to give you the controls that you need to make rectangles. And it'll change based on any of these. Like if I go down here to the pages, it changes. Every one of these tools has its own control bar. That's the main takeaway from this part of this demonstration. So that's your tool controls bar. Now over here on the left side and the right side, you have other button bars, you could call them. That's not the official name, but you have over here on the left, you have what's called a toolbox. So this is your box full of tools. And you know, as we've been demonstrating, you can click on these and it'll switch the tool that you're using. So this is all of the main drawing tools that you have. You've got, and we've talked about some of them already, the selector, the node tool, the shape builder. This is the rectangle tool. You got an ellipse/arc tool. And when we demonstrate these tools, you'll see why this one's called an ellipse/arc. This one's a rectangle tool. It's not called a rectangle/squares tool because every square is a rectangle, but not all rectangles are squares. So this is a rectangle tool. This is an ellipse/arc tool because you can make ellipses and arcs with it. A polygon and star tool. You can make both stars and polygons with this because when you select it, you get a control bar that allows you to define certain parts of the object that you're creating, and how you define these determines whether or not it looks like a star or a polygon. But you get the idea. Each one of these is a different tool that you use to draw with. I find myself using a lot of these at the top, and maybe that's why they're at the top, because you have to use those more often. But there are some things you can do with, for example, a spiral tool and the paths to the pen tool. There's all kinds of, each one of these has its own functions and options that you can set and control with it. So this area here in the interface is the canvas. This is what you draw on. It's where you edit things, although you don't have to edit them on the canvas. In Inkscape, you can draw something and it can be out here off of the canvas, and in certain scenarios, depending on how you use other tools, you can actually export stuff that's not on the visible canvas. So that's something to keep in mind, but we'll get to that in subsequent videos. Let me switch back to the select tool here. So this white part is your canvas, and I don't know if you can even see it. Let me scroll in here. There's a line around this, and you can probably see the shadow better than you can see the line, but there's actually a dark line around this. So that, along with the canvas, is the viewable page area. So canvas is where you do your editing of your images. This line around the outside of the canvas that's hard to see, but it's there. And the canvas itself, this is your visible area. And that'll come into play when we start talking about exports and stuff like that. But just know that the canvas is the white part, and if you include that black line that goes around it, now you're talking about the page area. You're not talking about just the canvas. Now, over to the right of that, you have another toolbar, and when you first open Inkscape, this let me just set this up so how it'll look when you first open it, because I'm talking about something that may not be visible to you if you just installed it. So over here you have this tool area. This is called the command bar. It's got commands in it, and it gives you access to some of the commands that you use when you're drawing. Now, these buttons are also visible in other places, and you can open things with these, or you can open them in other ways. This just gives you a quick way to access some of them. For example, let's say I wanted to look at the layers. Well, that's the create the new document, right? So if you click this, that'll give you, like I did earlier over using the file menu, that gives you a new document. And if you, sometimes these, like for example, these two icons, they look a lot alike. So you're gonna see icons that look similar to other ones, and it might be hard to tell what it is. But if you just point at it and just leave your cursor there, it will tell you not only what that's going to do, but it'll usually give you a shortcut keystroke, like that one's Control N. So if you hit those two keys on your keyboard, it's going to do the same thing. And you get the idea. You can open different, like if you click this, it opens a dialog box. You get the idea. Now, this toolbar, or this command bar, is not really long enough to show you everything. So there's a drop down here. If you click it, you'll get a bunch more that you can see. And these are the ones that I find myself leaving open, and I'll show you that here in a minute. I'll show you how I will work. You've already gotten a preview of it, because there'll be this panel open on the right. When you select one of those commands, you'll be able to open up multiple tabs inside of that panel. Let me just show you that real quick. Let's say I come up here to the top and I open the layers and objects. Let's say I wanted to open that area. See, you get this panel that pops out, and you can have more than one tab open in this panel. For example, a lot of times I'll use the fill and stroke panel, and see how it just loads it in the same location. So now I have two of these commands, right? So one of them is right here. That's the layers and objects. And then the other one is the fill and stroke, which is that one. Another one that I like to have open is the where is it? The export, which I don't see here. It's up here. It's this one. Yeah, this one is the export. So I like to have that one open too. And then I have the other one here, the align and distribute. And each time you go to use one of these commands, it'll open it here in this panel. Now, you don't have to keep them all open. I like to keep these four open because I use them so much, but you don't have to. You can close any of them you want and just leave the one open, because that allows you to make this a little smaller if you want to. So that's just something to keep in mind. And if you have one open, you can open another one by clicking this down arrow and just selecting it from in here. Like, let's say I wanted to open fill and stroke back up, and then I wanted to open the export one back up, and then I wanted the align and distribute. You get the idea. And so that just showed you there's three ways And there's even more, actually, if you count the shortcut keys. There's 4 ways to open a lot of these panels. You can do it up here at this menu if you know where it's at. You can do it down here with this if it's not visible in this bar. You can do it right here if you already have one open. And then, of course, many of these, if not all of them, many of them have shortcuts that you can use. See, like fill and stroke is Shift Control F. So if I had fill and stroke closed, I could hit Shift Control F and it will open it. And then you can slide these around to change the order if you want. So I like to keep mine in the same order every time because it helps create muscle memory. And if it's in the same spot every time, then it's the same distance from here to this button, and it helps me work faster. So that's just something to keep in mind. It's a little bit of a side note. So let's move on with the interface discussion that we've been talking about. Now you notice here at the top in the upper right hand corner there's this little magnet, right? And that's a snapping tool. If that's lit up like it is right now, then that means snapping is on. And now you might be saying, well, snapping what to what? Well, that depends on this little arrow here. If you click it and open it, you can adjust how your snapping tool behaves. Now, I would suggest not getting into the advanced settings or the advanced mode, because watch what happens. You can really change a lot of how this works by turning some of this on and turning some of it off. And if you're not experienced with what it does, it can confuse you. So I would suggest just keeping it like it is until you get used to. Of course, you can always reset it to simple. Like if you're in advanced and you change it, here's a reset button. Now I don't know if that changes the configuration back or if it just switches it back to this mode, but at any rate, it's powerful enough with just these settings that you shouldn't need to really explore any of that other stuff unless you're doing some real complicated things in Inkscape. But if you tinker around with it and you find that there is something that you like how that works better, then you're able to do it with Inkscape. So that's a nice thing. There is also some scroll bars right here on the right. Right, if you just grab this or click on this and drag it up and down, that allows you to scroll, and you can scroll right and left with these. There's also, if you have a scroll wheel on your mouse, scrolling up and down will allow you to use that scroll bar. And if you hold down I believe it's your shift key, and scroll up and down, that moves it left and right. So hold down shift and it goes left and right, let off a shift and it starts moving up and down. So that's a couple of quick ways to move around using the scroll bar. There also you can zoom in and out. Now there are tools that allow you to do this, right? Let's see, this tool down here, the zoom tool, you can click this and it'll allow you to click on the canvas and it'll zoom in. And if you click that and you hold down your which one is it? Well, actually you have to change it up in your, remember each one of these, I don't use this feature a lot, so that's why I'm not real familiar with exactly how it works. I'll show you or tell you how I use it here in a minute, but when you have this button selected up here, you can change whether or not you want it to be plus or minus, right? clicking on minus, clicking on plus allows you to zoom in and zoom out. So if I hit the minus key, it's zooming out. If I hit the plus key on my keyboard, it zooms in. This basically just tells you the tool, and by default it's going to zoom in. So you could use your click and your minus key to zoom in and out. That's not how I use it. I use control and my scroll wheel on my mouse. That does the same thing, and you don't have to go into the tool in order to do it. You can be using any tool. Like if I'm using the select tool, I can hold down control and use my scroll wheel on my mouse, and it zooms in and out freely, and I don't have to switch tools to do it. So that's how I like to work. But in your interface, that's how you can do it. Down here on the bottom left, or the bottom of the toolbar here on the left, you have a zoom tool, and you'll see that there's some things that it can do that I never find myself using these, so it may be something that I should probably take a look at. It could probably make my workflow a lot faster. But at any rate, that is how you can zoom in and out in Inkscape. So let's see what we've covered. Pretty much most of the things that I wanted to cover in this. As you've already seen, there's shortcut keys for many of these things, and in your menu you'll see they're all listed out here to the right for all the stuff that has a shortcut. And learning these shortcuts is nice, because if you use them from anywhere, usually they will work. So right now I'm in the zoom tool, but what if I wanted to go to the selector tool? I could hit S, and now I'm using that tool. If I wanted to go to the node tool, I could hit N, and now I'm using that tool. Back to zoom, hit Z, now I'm using zoom. Although I never use zoom, but I never use the tool. I just use, like I said before, my scroll wheel and my mouse and my control key. But you get the idea. Each of these tools, like your rectangle tool is R, your ellipse tool is E, your polygon tool is I guess that's the asterisk. So let's see if, yep, asterisk. But interestingly enough, well, let me double check that. The asterisk, you can either use, if you have a number pad on your keyboard, you can use the star that's above the 9, or if you don't have that, you can hit shift and the number 8 on your keyboard, which is the asterisk, and that will load that tool. So either one of those you can use. So, but you get the idea. Each of these have a hotkey. Shift and F4 is the 3D box. You'll find out that a lot of these you won't use. That's a T. Text tool is T. But once you get the hang of some of them, you can really change tools fast and work pretty quickly in Inkscape. So let's see, have I forgotten anything? I can't think of anything. That's other than down here at the bottom you have a color palette, and this color palette, you can change the color palette based on this button right here. You can switch. This is the Inkscape default, but there's some other ones that are loaded. Let's say you're working on a prototype for a website and you want to use Bootstrap colors. You can switch to the Bootstrap color palette, and you'll be using all the colors that are part of Bootstrap. If you're a web designer, you know what I'm talking about. If you're not, then maybe you are more familiar with some other, let me see, maybe you're familiar with one of these other versions of, maybe you're an Android developer. You got Android icon palettes. You got different shades, greens, gray, gold, blue, MATLAB Jet, Latex Beamer. So you've got some various Ubuntu. So these are all the Ubuntu colors, right? So you get the idea. You got different color palettes. You don't have to load every color in the world. You can just load the palette that the color is in. By default, it uses the Inkscape default. One of the things that I wish Inkscape had, and if you're watching this and you know the answer, please leave it in the comments so that I can find out how. But I wish I could change the size of this color palette. I wish it wasn't so long. I wish I could just expand it like one or two more rows. It doesn't have to be really big. It just needs to, maybe even just one more row would help me. Then I wouldn't have to come over here and scroll through them like this. I could just see most of the colors, because there's 6 rows of colors and you can only see 2 of them at any given time. So, but that's your colors. We didn't really get into how to use any of these tools. Just this is just an introduction to the interface and the concepts behind where everything is and what buttons are in what locations, and where to find the different parts of the program. So I hope that helps, and thanks for watching.